We are approximately 100 days away from the 2025 NFL season kicking off, and we're celebrating that as we battle it out in a 12-team PPR fantasy football mock draft. All this and more. It's a brand new episode of the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fix this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking, RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. And welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. Tonight, we reveal the results of our first redraft mock of 2025 and leave it up to you, the IBT family, to let us know who are the winners and who are the losers. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, feeling fresh after a week away in the beautiful city of Punta Cana. And I got to say, boys, that was like my first legitimate vacation, probably about 5 years. So in large part, that's thanks to you guys, the amazing team we have here at IBT, including a man who nearly had to pull a Tyler Owens last night, where if you feel it, you ride it, surviving the storms in South Texas. He's a big business, light ranching son of a gun. He's Eric Romoff. Eric, how you feeling coming off the first mock draft review of the season?
Feeling pretty good about my performance in this mock draft. Feeling pretty good about the summertime vibes here in South Central Texas. That means sometimes twisters are in the air, but no one's feeling as good about the summertime vibes as our guy Seth. Look at this shade of bronze my guy is rocking tonight. He's out here looking like a brand new man. You're just out here golden, crispy, sun-kissed. You got me ready to sit by the pool. I'm here for it.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, it's a little bit of red right on the nose too. Did my best. I was bathing in 70 all week, man. Bathing in the SPF 70, couldn't do enough, but yeah, feeling rested. I don't know if I'll ever look at. I'm a big daiquiri guy. In the first 3 days I was there, I consumed a lethal amount of daiquiris, and
yes.
I do not know if I'll be by the fourth day. I didn't have a daiquiri. I just started running beers from there on out.
This is a known thing. I know that last time we were on these airways, we were talking about the boot and rally. The idea of getting into vacation mode and starting with the fruitiest frozen drink that you can get. Down here, we call it throwing junk. You got to throw a little junk to start the day, and that just sets the trajectory for the rest of the trip.
I love it. A little throwing junk. Also, speaking of throwing junk, we welcome back the Shohei Ohtani of the IBT family. He's an expert in golf, entertainment, and of course, yes, fantasy football. He's Jake the Snake Perry. Jake, how are you hanging as the calendar flips to June this week? And have you been on that daiquiri train before as well on vacation?
You know, I typically don't go for the daiquiris, but I can mess up a Mai Tai. So I'm in the same general area as you. I'm also really glad you brought up the red on your nose when he was talking about your sheen, because I was going to if you didn't, because Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer hosting the show over here. But hey, all that means to me is you had a great time.
Oh yeah, boys, it was my big brother's wedding. The tarps came off at the wedding. It got rowdy at the end. The shirts were off for the boys. I saw my 80-year-old granddad, who probably one of the most proper SOBs I know out there in these streets, and he had a shirt off. He was dancing with the rest of us. I mean, it was great. It was a great time, but excited to be back too. I can't be away from work. I can't be away from the program that long. I hope everyone enjoyed our hot takes episode that we had out there for you last week as well. As noted, tonight on the show, front and center, mock draft review. Also, before we get going, shout out to the IBT family who's tuning in tonight. We appreciate you. We just crossed 1.5K subscribers, and we couldn't have done it without your support. As always, please give this video a like if you enjoy this type of content. It's the easiest way to support us, and subscribe if you're new. Looks like we got Ben hanging out. Ben's in the chat. Ben will be writing up this mock draft for the In Between Media website as well, so make sure you're checking that out. Shout out to our editor-in-chief, Trash Sandwiches. She was banging out content last week in my place. That was pretty cool to see. Everything from like the Survivor season recap. We had some Formula One bets going out there. We had some golf. So it was a great week for the channel and for the site. And while you're on the site, consider getting a ticket to Draft Night Out. That's our live fantasy football draft at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio this August. If you want to come draft myself, Jacob, Eric, and two of our closest fantasy football friends who are, I want to say, as big of degenerates as us, but pretty dang close. This is the event for you. We'll have a shot wheel spinning, giveaways going off, songs and singing, everything in between. The link is in the episode description. Jake, are you ready for Draft Night Out? I think that's where I met you for the first time last year as DNO, and it was a good time to say the least.
Oh yeah, it was a great time, and this year's going to be even better. Even if you guys don't want to draft while you're there, you can come hang out with me and rip 17 Miller Lights. It'll be a great time.
Oh, there you go, baby, love it. Let's go ahead, guys. Let's open up the floor with our mock draft review in front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place we can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
All right, it's front and center. We're breaking down our first mock draft for redraft formats of the season. 12 teams, full point PPR, because that's how we roll around these parts. And we're going to go ahead and bring up the draft board below us. Again, you can also find the article if you want to read along with Ben and his thoughts on it at inbetweenmedia.com. And just to introduce some of the people in this mock draft, we had a good mix of both just enthusiasts and fans, and then also a good chunk of our analysts here at IBT as well. We had my buddy John drafting from the 1 spot, Steve, who isn't here tonight, but our co-host Steve, draft from the 102. Will ripping down the 3. We also had our business director, Tyler Bradley. He was in the 104. Ben in the 105. Eric took the 106. My brother, Austin, the newlywed, in the 107 slot. My boy, Yudo, in the 108. Terrible gambler. Went up $1,000 the first night at the casino. We told him to walk away. Kid couldn't walk away, so don't expect his draft to be much better. Yeah, right?
You can't walk away from a heater.
Dude, this is like, it's a track record thing though, right? Like, Eric, come on. Like, this kid's MO. Always up big, always ends up in the red at the end though.
Oh yeah. I think both statements are absolutely right. You cannot walk away from a heater, but you can take like a couple $100 more than you walked up with and stick it in your pocket and ride out the heater.
That's what you got to do. You double your entry fee once you're up big. That goes in the pocket, and then you're truly playing with house money.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also, looks like we got a guy Albert in the chat. What's up, Albert? Good to see you, buddy. Jake is going to be hanging out in the 109 slot tonight, and then we have our guy James in 110. James writes a lot of entertainment, also a lot of fantasy football content for him. I'm at the 111, and then Bo McD big time over there right now, live over there on the 19th hole as well on the channel tonight. He's holding it down over there in the 112. Let's get it started in round 1. It goes 101 to Jamar Chase, for the Cincinnati Bengals. 102, it is Saquon Barkley to Steve. Will takes Bijan Robinson at the 103. CeeDee Lamb at the 104. Justin Jefferson at the 105 to Ben. Eric, you were on the clock here at 106. Did you like how the board fell to you? Were you hoping one of these top 5 slid? And what was the ultimate pick for you?
Yeah, I was pretty comfortable with how the board unfolded. It seemed fairly typical, right? Maybe not in the exact order of the first 5 that you always see, but these are generally the guys that come off the board. It's why I decided to slot into the number 6 spot, because I think that's kind of the first decision point of most drafts. And the choice that I made was for Puka Nacua, stepping back into his lead role for the Los Angeles Rams. There was, I know, some question marks as to whether or not Matthew Stafford would return for the upcoming season. We now know that he will be there, and that connection is as good as gold in terms of fantasy production, right? You have Puka Nacua, who missed several games last year, only played 11 games, was still pulling in 106 targets, was number one in target rate, right? Just an absolute volume monster in an offense that is centered around getting him into motion, getting the ball in his hands in space, and really looking to advance the ball by way of the air. They do a lot of throwing in the red zone. They do a lot of throwing to the end zone. So, for me, stability in his situation is coveted, and I'm perfectly comfortable taking him at the 106.
Yeah, I'd be really happy with Puka at the 106. I love the 105 too. I think if I can get Justin Jefferson at the 105, like sign me up. I think that's probably my favorite position to draft. So I think Ben's off to a great build there with Jay Jet there. Like honestly, I'd almost like rather have 4, 5, and 6 than I think anything currently. But going down, we have the 107, Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it's Amon-Ra St. Brown to Udo at the 108. And then, Jake, you come in here at the 109. What was your strategy, and who did you ultimately go with?
My strategy is pretty much always going to be who I view as the best player available. And for me, that was Malik Neighbors. It was a pretty no-brainer pick for me. We just watched the best rookie wide receiver season that we've ever seen. He gets a severe quarterback upgrade, to say the least, regardless of if the starter is Jackson Dart, if the starter is Jameis Winston, if the starter's Russell Wilson. Like, whoever is starting there is better than what he dealt with as his quarterbacks in 2024. So we get, a severe upgrade there. Even as a rookie, put up quarterback 6 in points per game numbers. Or wide receiver 6, sorry. I'm getting him here at wide receiver 6, and I'm expecting a bigger season. I have Neighbors in my dynasty ranks as my wide receiver 2. And I think in redraft, I feel like 1-9 is almost as far as you can imagine him dropping. I wouldn't imagine being able to get him any later than this. So when looking at what was available, it was pretty much just an instant click for me.
Yeah, I know Steve is all in on Malik Neighbors this year. I also am. I think he does have legit wide receiver 1 overall upside. The quarterback play is improving. Like, you can have the conversation about how much, but I definitely think – yeah, I would argue over, Danny Dimes and Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock. I would much rather have what they're dealing with out there with Russell Wilson, potentially Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston. So I like that pick a lot at the 1-9, the 110, Nico Collins. I went Ashton Genty at the 111. And look, I get it. It's going to be a little bit tough sledding just from like an offensive line standpoint. I think from the Raiders, like they don't have a great offensive line by any means, but there's still a lot to get excited about. A guy who's coming off a Heisman runner-up season. Not only can he run downhill, make people miss, but at the same time, he is a lethal pass catcher we saw back in 2023. In a Chip Kelly offense, it's going to be high volume. It's going to be fast paced. And he's playing in a backfield right now, boys, that it's Raheem Mostert, Sear McCormick, Zamir White, Dylan Laub. So I think it's going to be Ashton Genty time to eat, and I'm going to go with the hero RB approach. I don't love going running back here at the 111. I was thinking about maybe taking like a Brian Thomas and seeing who would maybe fall back to me. And it seemed I could get Genty, but I know Bo has a little bit of a thing for the Raiders, so I thought I wouldn't see him again. And speaking of the Raiders, he does make a pick for the Raiders at the 112. It is Brock Bowers to round us out in the first round. Jake, any surprises for you in the first round? Do you think this is kind of how it should go? Muted, Jake.
Thanks for that. Forgot that was my bad. Figured nobody wants to hear my dogs barking in the background. But I think really the only change we'd see in most drafts, especially in home leagues, I would imagine Derrick Henry probably goes in Genty's spot. I feel like, home leagues especially, you're going to see a lot more of the older, more powerhouse traditional running back going there. But overall, I really don't think there's too many surprises here. I personally wouldn't go a tight end in the first round, even as generational as I think Brock Bowers is.
Agreed.
I think you can just get better value, as I got later, that we'll talk about here. Other than that, though, I think it's pretty straightforward. If you want to make an argument that Bowers was taken too early, the next like 4 guys we're going to talk about all could have gone there and it would have made sense. And Bowers falls in that tier for me as well. So I really don't think there's anything too out of line in this round.
Eric, who do you think will be the biggest riser or faller in ADP in the first round over the next 3 or so months?
From the guys drafted in the first round, it's probably Ashton Genty, right? We've seen far inferior running backs get steamed up more than a player of Genty's caliber, right? And taking him in the first round for my money is a bit of a reach, just because I don't like taking running backs in the first round generally. So I'm not necessarily the target market for that type of move, but we go back to like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire hype, right? Obviously, that is the worst case scenario. I don't think that's well represented.
I was thinking more Saquon. I was thinking more Saquon rookie year is what I was hoping for.
Sure, yeah, he can have a fine rookie campaign by all statistical measures, and he would probably still underwhelm relative to where he's being drafted. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get into late July and into August and we see him as like a top 5, top 4 pick.
Yeah.
Right? People love the new shiny thing. I'm already a little bearish with where he's going, and I think he can still keep creeping up the board.
Okay. At the 201, it was Brian Thomas Jr. that Bo goes with. That was a heartbreaker. I was really hoping BTJ would fall back to me. Instead, I settled for Drake London at the 2-2, which I don't feel great about, but this was still a guy who was a top 5 wide receiver last year overall when he was dealing with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, and just not a great offense overall. Didn't bring in a ton more. They still got Darnell Mooney hanging around. They still have Kyle Pitts in the mix. We'll see if he can take another step forward now that Michael Penix Jr. is under center. But Drake London, it feels safe. It doesn't feel sexy. It's not really where I wanted to go with my second round pick, but it is where I fall. Josh Allen at the 203 to James. And then, Jake, what do you do with the 2-4?
Yeah, when Derrick Henry's on the board, I brought his name up earlier. I'd take him in the first round. So seeing him there at 204, again, just a pretty easy click for me. I mean, regardless of age, the dude's 31, is in better shape than 90% of 18-year-olds in the world and every age in between. Yeah. The guy is just a freak. He's coming off the best year we've seen him have since 2021 when he got hurt. If you look at his last 6 years, starting back in 2019, running back 4 in points per game, running back 3, running back 1, albeit injury shortened season, running back 4, running back 16 on that horrible Titans team, and then running back 4 again last year. It's just a pretty smash pick for me. If he gets hurt and this is the year that, he finally goes away, so be it. The upside is simply too good to pass on at this point.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I got burned by him. I went back in on Derrick Henry in 2023. I was out in 2024. And then, but the touchdown equity is just so high, right? Like, the touchdown equity is just going to be insane again. And like, they just don't want to run Lamar there. So I'm back in. I'm back in on Henry at the 2-4. Like, honestly, if I could have, looking back at this, I could even start out Genty and Henry. I would not mind that. I think that's a great value. I really like the start of your team, Jake. We'll talk about if I like the rest of it here later on. Ladd McConkey at the 2-5, Tyreek Hill at the 2-6, and then Eric, what do you do with the 2-7 after taking Puka in the first?
So I double up on the wide receiver position, and I welcome Jackson Smith and Jigba to the team at the 2-7. A lot of the overarching thought is I'm looking for guys that bring legitimate ceiling, but also have a very, very safe volume floor. And I think that is the best way to describe what we project JSN's 2025 season to be. A bit of a wobbly start to the beginning of last year and still finished 12th in targets at the position, 137 looks. And now you have Clint Kubiak enter this offense, and we know exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to leverage that zone with play action. He's trying to get guys into space. He's trying to do a lot of short and intermediate routes and let guys create yards after the catch. And that's precisely what JSN specialized in last season, number 7 in yards after catch on the 2024 campaign. And you just look around him, and I mean, maybe if you want to plant your flag on this being, the revitalization of Cooper Kupp this year, fine. But, by and large, he is the clear alpha among this wide receiver core. So I feel like the pairing of these two picks together gives me that beautiful floor and ceiling combination I want to leave the early rounds with.
Yeah, don't want to glaze anyone up on the program, but definitely like the starts for everyone here joining us tonight. AJ Brown then goes at the 208, which I think is a great value for him. I love what Tyler does here. He goes Christian McCaffrey at the 209 after taking Lamb in the first round. I think that's a great double up. Achane goes to Will after taking Bijan in the first. Garrett Wilson at the 211. And then it's Jonathan Taylor to round out the second round. I don't really think there's any big surprises here in the second round. Like, it does feel weird for me that JSN is now a second round pick, but that's just because I got him everywhere last year for an 8th round pick and he was an absolute monster. So I think it's just like me coming to that reality. I think Achane at the end of the round feels pretty good to me as well. I felt like that was a very good value. I mean, I've seen Achane sometimes pop into the first round of redrafts right now, Jake.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. I don't love it. I'll never love it. It's too many things with Achane for me. If you look at his numbers with Tua, they're phenomenal. As soon as Tua is gone, it's a problem. Achane himself, I know he hasn't really gotten hurt severely yet. He's still an injury risk at his size. There's just too many question marks for me. I like that he did it with Bijan, though. I think you get that ceiling of both running backs where Bijan is kind of more your floor. And then later on in the draft, too, he took a couple guys that I think offer a solid enough floor as well at the running back position that it makes the upside make sense. It's just not a pick I'm going to make.
Okay.
Same with Christian McCaffrey at the 2.9. It's not a move I'm really going to do.
Really?
Older guy coming off of dual Achilles tendonitis.
Yeah,
there's just too, if he starts falling into the third round, I'm in. But second round, there's just too many good names still there for me.
Is there a big gap for both of you between Henry and McCaffrey and Achane?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of like the first. Would you say Henry kind of like rounds out like the elite running back tier for you?
There's maybe one or two other guys that got taken after. That I would include in that tier personally, but I wouldn't knock people if they didn't have those guys there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was just going to agree with Jake's point there. I think there are a couple of guys that might make like a little micro tier after Henry, but before you get into that CMC conversation. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're thinking about the same guys.
Yeah. Josh Jacobs at the 301, Breece Hall at the 302 to Steve. I saw that one coming from a mile away. Knowing Steve. T. Higgins at the 303, Will's first wide receiver. Kyron Williams off the board at the 304. Bucky Irvin now going at the 305 to Ben. And then Eric, what do you do at the 306? You've addressed wide receiver at the beginning of the draft. Do you pivot to a different position here?
I do. Yeah. I decide to go with my anchor running back, and that being one of your favorites, Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals, a player that was one of the highest volume, highest usage players at the position last year. Kind of like I was talking about for a different reason with Puka Nacua a few rounds ago, a player that had legitimate question marks about what his role was going to be heading into the season and if there was going to be stability therein, or in his case for Brown, if they were going to bring in competition for workload. And by and large, the Bengals haven't exactly done that. So stop me if you've heard this before, really put a covet and a premium on volume floors when I think about my early round targets. And Chase Brown went out there and completely delivered. I know that there was concerns about where he was drafted. I know there was concerns about his size overall, but now we have a considerable sample size of him being able to do it, him being able to translate that lower level school production to the NFL level, and to do so while largely staying healthy. So happy to have him here as my anchor RB in the third round.
You just take a shot at Illinois fans? What was that? Come on, but dude, Illinois's got like, honestly,
it's fair. You can take the shot as an Illinois native. I'll let you take the shot.
I haven't seen the odds yet there are not odds to make the college football playoff. Illinois is worth a flyer, boys. Illinois is worth a flyer. And that's like Chase Brown, when he was at Illinois, man, he straight up was, I mean, he had Christian McCaffrey workhorse type numbers that Christian McCaffrey was putting up at Stanford, both through the air and on the ground. We saw that last year. I'm completely in on Chase Brown, the 306. Like, let me shout out a couple Chase Brown at the 306, or where McCaffrey and Achane went.
I'm not the biggest Brown guy. I would probably take Achane over him, but I wouldn't take CMC over him.
Eric,
I would take him over both. The injury concern with Achane would be the tiebreaker for me.
Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs, same. Chase Brown.
I'm comfortably taking both of them over Chase Brown.
I would take Hall over Chase Brown.
I agree with that. Okay. Lamar Jackson at the 307, second quarterback goes off the board. Jane Daniels at the 308. Trey McBride then at the 39. What's got you jonesing for another lap around the McBride? A guy who has 5 touchdowns in 3 seasons?
Hey, that 6 touchdowns. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
But it, again, like like Eric's talked about pretty heavily so far, just the volume is too good to pass up. Really added almost no legitimate competition to the room there. He's coming off a 147 target season. I think we're going to see an improved Kyler again this year as he's more comfortable in that system and another year removed from injury. And when you can get 15.5 points per game out of a tight end, you're going to be happy with that production pretty consistently. And if you look at the wide receivers that come off the board after it, there's not a whole lot of them that I'm like super, super confident can put up that number. Sure. Running back wise, we're at a tier that I avoid generally pretty heavily. So for me, it was just, I see McBride, I click McBride.
Yeah, I completely understand it. At the 310 is Terry McLaurin. I went there at the 311. I go Devontae Adams. It was between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. to me. Like, Marv's more fun, but I just like, and I haven't taken Devontae in a couple of years just because I've been worried the fall off's coming, and I think it's just going to be solid. I think in Los Angeles, man, like I think Puka's definitely the wide receiver you want there. But at the same time, even in an offense with Garrett Wilson last year, he goes into New York. He still puts up on pace for 1,300 yards, double-digit touchdowns once again. And I don't think Matthew Stafford is any bit of a downgrade to what Aaron Rodgers was last year. So I do like Adams there. It's not a pick I feel great about, but then we go into the 4th round, and it was Omarion Hampton off the board at the 401. Great pick, I think, there to Bo. I take Mike Evans at the 402. So how do you like my receiver so far, Eric? Do you like him at all? Devontae Adams, 3rd round, Mike Evans, 4th round. I feel like I have a lot of upside, but also some old heads that I wasn't super fond of taking.
Yeah, I love your London pick. I wouldn't be upset at all if you swapped London and Genty, with London being your 1st round selection. I think his upside, I mean, we've seen his upside last year, and we've seen what he can do with subpar quarterback play. I think he still has a lot left in the clip. You mentioned a couple of guys that are a little bit longer in the tooth. I am a known and proud ageist. So this is probably a little early for guys like that, but also like none of these things, rankings, ADP, whatever, none of these are compiled in a vacuum, right? Like if you look at the context of the board, I think you went with some of the, the better available options for the positions you were looking to fill, right? So I'm not going to begrudge you on those picks. I always get a little nervous about old dudes, especially when we're kind of doing the countdown clock of like, I know the fall off's coming one of these years.
It is.
Like,
it is. Yeah.
Eventually it's going to come, and I'm going to feel real silly if it's this year, if I spend a 3rd round pick on them. Right. So I think all told they're fine selections, but I would feel a little uneasy about it.
Oh yeah. 100% did when I kind of made those back-to-back picks, but sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit a little bit. And, Mike Evans, another guy, just continues to put up wide receiver 1 seasons year after year. And they're both on good offenses. That's the one thing I like, right? I mean, we don't know what the switch of offensive coordinator will do to the Bucs, but Baker's coming off a year, career best, 40 plus touchdowns. And and Adams is going to be locked and loaded as long as Matthew Stafford can keep the shoulder and healthy and himself upright. James Cook at the 403. Then it's Jalen Hurts to you, Jake, at the 404. I like the pick of Jalen Hurts at the 404. I think it's a good value, especially with the tush push likely staying around as well. I don't love going with two onesies positions back up, though.
While I understand it, there's not a quarterback left that gives me the upside that Jalen Hurts offers, in my opinion. So this was just a very easy pick for me. I know I'm getting 20 plus points a game out of my quarterback. True. And it's now something I don't have to think about for the rest of the draft. From here on out, I can just continue to let value fall to me. There's always, at this point, there's always going to be tier breaks for me where I feel comfortable with any of the guys in the tier. If I don't get Jalen Hurts as my quarterback, I start to not like any of the quarterbacks. And I'm always like, I get into that kind of position where it's like, oh, I can wait one more round on this guy. No, I couldn't. I can wait one more round on this guy. Couldn't do that one either. So I feel comfortable just locking up my quarterback production relatively early. And it's not for me. Like, I think going Allen in the second or getting a quarterback in the second or third is a little too much of a reach for me. But when I can get elite production in the fourth round, regardless of position, I'm just going to take it. Especially when you look at a few of the guys that went right after, like, the point disparity in the end of the day, positional value does matter, but regardless, total points that my guys are going to score matters as well. And what I'm going to get out of Hurts is greater than any of the remaining players on the board.
Chuba Hubbard off the board at the 405, Kenneth Walker off the board to my brother at the 406. And then Eric, you take DJ Moore at the 407. This is probably the first pick you make here that I don't necessarily love just because it is a crowded offense. Does that not concern you here with DJ Moore?
Yeah, it is a valid concern, right? I mean, you need only to bust out the abacus and say that there are many mouths to feed in this offense, and it's not perfectly clear who is going to take priority and precedence. But for me, there's really two things that drive this decision. One, I am a big fan of Johnson coming in as the head coach and what it means for this offense, an offense that threw to the red zone or threw in the red zone at the third highest rate in all of the NFL last year. But also, I'm a big fan of DJ Moore's talent, right? We think about what Coach Johnson likes to do. He likes to scheme guys up. He likes to get a lot of motion working. He likes to find ways to scheme players open and let their ability to separate and their ability to generate yards after the catch do the rest of the work. And that is precisely what DJ Moore specializes in. Number 3 in yards after catch last year, number 5 in average target separation over 2 yards per play. So this is a legitimate gamble because it could be that they drafted Luther Burden to be the new DJ Moore, or it could be that they have a known commodity who is very, very good at the things that this offense has proven to want to do in the past. And I'm going to feel happy with DJ Moore as my 4th round pick. So fair play that it is a gamble, but one that I'm willing to make at my wide receiver 3 spot.
Ben keeps cooking at the 408. He goes with Tedero McMillan. Cortland Sutton off the board to Tyler at the 409. Rashee Rice. Will looking to gamble a little bit on his guy Rice in back-to-back years at the 410. Alvin Kamara off the board at the 411. Chris Godwin coming off the board at 412. Interesting ADPs for both those guys. I thought Rashee Rice and Godwin, just considering both health injuries. I don't think I could be that aggressive on either one of those guys in drafts. Joe Mixon coming off the board at the 501. I think that's a great deal for Joe Mixon. Honestly, he's another guy, like, clock's ticking, but he still got control as of now. Xavier Worthy at the 502. Also Zay Flowers at the 503 to Will. And then George Kittle, 504. And I think I love Ben's first 4 picks in this draft. He went Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Bucky Irving, and then McMillan in the 4th. But TJ Hawkinson in the 5th. It's a no from me, dog. It's a no from me. No way. I can't get it. I can't get behind it, Jake.
I can. I love Hawkinson
in the 5th, dude.
Here's my argument for it. All right, if you look at TJ Hawkinson prior to the injury. Tight end 2, tight end 4, tight end 7.
Dude, I was a huge Hawkinson guy. I think that time's passed, man.
While I understand that, This is an offense that has a great leader who understands how to use their guys. Hawkinson kind of got slowly incorporated back into the offense, yet still he recorded 2 9-target games in his first 4 games back, one of those being on a 45% snap share. Like, the volume upside of Hawkinson surpasses almost every other tight end. Do I think he could have waited around and still gotten Hawkinson? Sure. And I think that's mostly what my issue with the pick would be. But overall, in general, I don't hate it, because you struggle to get true tight end 1 upside. Everybody else after Kittle, essentially, it's kind of like, who's really going to be the next guy? We don't know. I'd rather chase the volume there than some of the big play upside we get out of other tight ends. So I don't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's around early, but if you flipped his picks, like if you flipped Hawkinson in his 6th round pick, I wouldn't take that guy in the 5th round, but I don't think it seems as outrageous. It seems a lot like the Detroit draft year where they took Gibbs and Campbell, and then it's like, if we just flip the positions of their 2 first round picks with their 2 second round picks, we're not saying anything. So like, that's just kind of what it boils down to for me. I just don't think it's a terrible way to lock up your tight end position.
Eric, I touched on it last week in our hot take show, but DK Metcalf is someone I'm aggressively targeting in drafts right now, just because if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback there in Pittsburgh, we know that he is just going to target the ever living crap out of DK Metcalf, potentially maybe seeing career highs in a couple different categories. My hot take is that he goes over 1,300 yards in this Pittsburgh offense. It's not a lot behind his Pat Freiermuth. It's a couple boys coming out of the backfield that we'll talk about later in the show, but DK Metcalf here at the 506. I almost took him at the 402. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a tough decision. I'm that high on DK Metcalf right now. I think you got a steal here at the 5-6.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see him on the board here in the 5th round. Part of me was hoping that one of, if not both, of the KC receivers were going to fall to me. What they didn't, and DK Metcalf is a worthy consolation prize, one that I'm very happy with. Look, I don't think, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins or player to be named later under center for the Steelers, I don't think this is going to be an electric offense by any means. But as was the case with 3 of my first 4-round picks, you look around the competition that is going to be surrounding DK Metcalf, and it is thin to nil to none. Mm-hmm. Right, he will dominate target share in this offense. Arthur Smith, a bit more known for his prowess enabling the running game. But every time that he has a strong running game, he also has one big body receiver who's able to do some work as the counterpunch, be it A.J. Brown, be it Drake London, right? I think DK Metcalf slots into this role. And, as we continue on through the 5th round and later into this mock draft, find me the next wide receiver off the board who is going to have an absolute stranglehold on the target volume in their offense that DK Metcalf will. And I think you will be holding your breath for a while.
I 100% agree. Love the pick. 507, Jalen Waddle. 508, Devonta Smith. I can understand Waddle going here. It definitely feels like a good value for Smith, though. Waddle's been disappointing in back-to-back seasons. Last year, I mean, he killed you down the stretch. He had 1 or 2 big games and in and out of the lineup. And then, Jake, you go Judkins at the 5'9". I think that's a really good value for a guy who, while I do have, some more question marks than I think some people do, and I know you got, and I have debated the prospect, but there's no debating the landing spot should be great. Dylan Sampson will see some work. Jerome Ford will still be around as well, but Judkins should find the end zone quite often, more compared to a lot of running backs you're going to get here late in the 5th.
Yeah, it was, again, just luckily for me in picking where I did in the 9 spot here, I just got a bunch of no-brainer guys fall to me, and that's what Judkins was here. Like, elite running back 1 upside. I'm not comparing him to, elite, the best of the best Nick Chubb, but if he's 80% of what Nick Chubb was at his ceiling, this is a smash in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. Like, we're talking one of the most athletic running backs in the class going to the best or second best potential landing spot amongst the first round or the early drafted running backs this year. Just a no-brainer, especially after watching Waddle and Smith go to me. I wanted Smith. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Waddle hurt a little bit. Waddle would have been fun in the 6th. it was even less fun watching him go to the same team that has Tyreek Hill. So that was tough too. But Judkins, like, it's a no, like getting him at what, like RB 19 or something in this draft, like getting a guy I think could legitimately be a top 5 running back this year, this late, easy.
Tyrone Tracy goes off the board to 5'10". Not sure if I love that pick by any means, but if you believe in someone in the Giants backfield, him or Scattaboo, I go RJ Harvey at the 5'11", which I think is a steal for Harvey too. I think it's another guy who, unlike Judkins, I think we'll see quite a bit of pass catching work in this offense. We know Sean Payton likes to do that. Does have Jaleel McLaughlin that will see some targets. I'm sure that, the rookie from last year, Audric Estime, won't just completely disappear, but I think RJ Harvey's in line for a good role. So I love getting him there at the 5'11". Jordan Addison at the 5'12" to Bo, and then he goes Joe Burrow at the 6'1". Travis Hunter was my pick at the 6'2". I know I've kind of dogged Travis Hunter a lot, but I thought to get him as my high upside wide receiver 4 felt great in the 6th round. That was one I was very, very thrilled with. Roma Dunze at the 603, really like that pick as well. If you believe in Chris Olave, the talent, Jake, he's also someone back in the mix for you at the 604, which I'm fine with it from a pure talent perspective. Just got to hope he stays healthy.
Yeah, it was a risk reward pick. The best thing that ever happened was Derek Carr retiring for him. Olave will now be able to remember his name in 10 years. No more hospital balls, hopefully. So it was just risk reward looking at the rest of the board. The highest reward, the risk is there, but I feel so comfortable with the rest of my team and other guys I was able to pick later that I'm fine with taking that risk here.
Sam Laporta at the 605, Jerry Jeudy coming in the 606, Travion Henderson then to you, Eric, at the 607. You kind of just follow Jake and I's trend here, get in on some rookie running backs in the middle rounds. It's usually a good strategy, and it's one that all three of us are investing in.
It is, and this is where I will offer a public service announcement and then begrudge our humble host, Seth Wilcock. Whenever you're in your draft on your platform of choice, scroll down. A lot of times, players like Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins and RJ Harvey are buried in ADP until the system gets a number of drafts running through it. So don't just go off of the next 10, 15 guys that you can see on the list. Go out there, know who you're targeting, put them in your queue. Judkins, Harvey, Henderson, these are all guys that I think you could make a case for going 10, 12, 15 picks earlier than they did.
Agreed.
I would feel comfortable taking Judkins in the 3rd round, to be clear.
Yeah, 100%. Travion Henderson, much like DK Metcalf, for me, was also a consolation prize. I was hoping that I would be able to hold my position as the Quinshon Judkins stands of this airways. Unfortunately, Jake had similar designs and took them out from under me, but happy to get Henderson here. Just absolutely explosive, dynamic out of the backfield. I think the conservative estimate is he walks in and has all of the 3rd down work available to him in New England. But given the age, given the inefficiency, given the fumbling problem, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on the right side of the split with Ramondre Stevenson pretty early on in the year. So happy to get him as my RB2 at this point.
It's going to take one practice where they see both of them carry the ball, and it's going to be very clear who the starting running back should be in that room.
Yeah.
The guy with athleticism.
Not to mention draft capital as well with Henderson. So love that pick there. Javonte Williams goes at the 606, and Jameson Williams, goes off at the 608. James Conner next, Dave Montgomery, George Pickens, and then Jacoby Myers rounds out the first 6 rounds. We go into round 7. Old man Travis Kelce, 701. Evan Ingram, 702. Brandon Ayuk, 703. Ricky Pearsall, 704. Patrick Mahomes off the board at the 705. And Khalil Shakir to you, Eric, at the 706. 2 questions for you. First, what's it feel like to get Shakir here? I've been a guy from the streets, from the back of the pack. I've been yelling, that was going to be the Bills wide receiver 1 last year. And he came through for me. Very serviceable flex wide receiver 2 option last year. Are you going back there? And what do you think of Patrick Mahomes off the board here, one pick before him? I know we've kind of been fading Mahomes, but in the 7th round, it feels weird just considering he's always been a top 4 round pick, at least in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You walked through the sort of makeup of this draft room, and it sounds like there are a fair share of casual players, but the way that this mock draft unfolded with regard to the QB position actually feels pretty sharp, right? To be able to have Patrick Mahomes sitting here in the middle point of the 7th round, I think it's fine value. It's not a decision that I would make, right? If he was there for me in the next pick, I wouldn't be clicking it. To Jake's point earlier, I think after Jalen Hurts, it's not just a tier break, it is a cliff. I would much rather go speculate in like the QB 10 through QB 20 off the board and try to find my diamond in the rough that way. But it's a perfectly appropriate pick, right? I don't think you can really poke too many holes in it. In terms of Khalil Shakir, how the turntables, you were the one that was banging the drum for Shakir all season long last year. I was the one saying, but he only plays 2/3 of snaps, right? But at this point, part of the reason why I am always out here in these early rounds putting such a premium on volume is that when you have that volume floor of your top draft picks, you can take some risks, right? Khalil Shakir is one of those per play efficiency darlings, right? Everything that he's able to do, given the limited amount of snaps that he saw last year, about 60%, is incredible. If he repeats that, I am A-okay with him sitting here as my wide receiver 5. If he sees even just a marginal uptick in playing time, he could easily be a top 15, top 18, top 20 type player. So again, another risk that I am happy to take, especially when I look up at my first 3 rounds of volume lords that are just stacking up that floor for me.
Off the board next, Isaiah Pacheco, 7th round, 7th pick. Aaron Jones, Michael Pittman Jr. to you. And I think he's your wide receiver 3. I don't know. This is where it starts to go off the rails for me, Jake. I don't know if I can get behind Pittman here. There just feels like a lot of question marks. He was a guy who wasn't long into the season, 5 or 6 weeks. That was almost waiver wire fodder last year.
He was dealing with some pretty bad back injuries. I think we may all remember the week we woke up to the message, Michael Pittman's going to be out for the season. And then like 2 days later, it was like Michael Pittman's starting. So clearly something was going on with the back there, but still just 27 years old. Even last year with Anthony Richardson playing some of the worst quarterback we've ever seen in the entire history of the planet of Earth, he still pulled 111 targets, and a lot of the other aspects of his game started to trend in the direction we really needed them to for Pittman to have a true breakout season. His ADOT finally jumped back up to, the 10-11 range as opposed to sitting in the 7-8 range that had been a couple years prior. The red zone target share was good. The overall target share was good. The target rate was good. Like everything was good. The quarterback play was just bad. And I think it's going to be pretty quick into camp that we get the news that Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback. And this is not me, glazing Daniel Jones in any way, shape, or form, but he's a lot better for fantasy assets than Anthony Richardson ever will be. Mm-hmm. And I think Pittman's still one of the only true kind of elite upside target earners left.
Okay. And then we have a pair of Titans going off the board at the 7-10, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley off the board at the 7-11 to me. And guys, I'm like starting to get pretty excited about Calvin Ridley. I think if I can get him here in the 7th round, honestly, just because I do believe in Cam Ward, I think more than most people. I think, I've compared him to like an early career Joe Flacco. I think he's a guy who's not going to be afraid to sling it and push the ball down the field. And I think Calvin Ridley can be a beneficiary of that. We saw it a couple years ago with Trevor Lawrence. He had some really, really close calls to having some big touchdowns that were kind of just called back. He'd step out of the end zone, something like that. So things go Calvin Ridley's way. I wouldn't be surprised if he was pushing towards double-digit touchdowns. It's really only him. It's Van Jefferson, Tyler Lockett in the starting lineup. I do like some of the rookies they brought in that position. They do have Chimere Dike and Alec Ayomanor coming out of Stanford as well. So I think maybe those guys could start to push some of these veterans down the board, but not Calvin Ridley. He feels like a safe pick there. Najee Harris off the board at 7-12 to Bo. But Bo gets both Chargers running backs with Hampton also going in the 4th round to him. Brian Robinson Jr. at the 801. I go with Jaylen Warren at the 802. I could have made an argument for either Steeler backs. They felt like ones I just wanted to be kind of connected to this run game. Jaylen Warren's a guy who can get third down work, and I imagine, or at least early in the season, I think he's going to prop his value up a bit, because while Caleb Johnson's still getting a hold of the ropes, I think Warren will take, the better portion of a 50-50 split. Jonnu Smith off the board at the 8-3. Jake goes Darnell Mooney at the 8-4. Deebo Samuel at the 8-5 to Udo. Austin rounds out his top 8 rounds. Mark Andrews. Dalton Kincaid at the 8-7. Caleb Johnson to Ben at the 8-8. Eric, you like the Kincaid pick? You happy with that real quick?
Moderately. I think that we're kind of at a bit of a tight end cliff here.
Sure.
So that's part of the decision. The second part of the decision is a lot of the analysis that I offered with Khalil Shakir, another player in Kincaid that from an efficiency standpoint was able to do a lot with not a whole lot of playing time. So, part of the story of these middle rounds for me is I believe we see a player emerge out of this Buffalo offense and get more time on the field. Also, Dalton Kincaid, it wasn't a lost season to injury by any means, but you look, we lost him in week 10 for 3 or 4 weeks. And prior to that point, he was really starting to heat up. 7-6, 7-6, 7, 10 targets in that stretch of games prior to that injury. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him maybe not live up to his draft capital, but step closer towards the type of productivity you would expect from a player drafted that high.
Caleb Johnson at the 8-8, Travis Etienne at the 8-9, DeAndre Swift at the 8-10, Josh Downs at the 8-11, and then Cooper Kupp rounds us out of the top 8 rounds. That's all we're going to go through tonight. Again, if you want more insight on our mock draft, go to inbetweenmedia.com. Ben's article will be out this week for you to check that out. Real quick before we get out of here, Jake, what did you think of your strategy? You went with a more balanced approach. Do you like what you see out there? Was yours the favorite draft you saw out of all of this? Any final thoughts? And thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. The only change I would have made is I wish I wasn't on the golf course and I had time to scroll down ADP and see that Caleb Johnson was still there at the 8-4 instead of Darnell Mooney. But otherwise, I love my draft. I don't have Dalton Kincaid on my team, Eric, so I like mine a little bit more than yours, but I loved yours before that pick.
Eric, I have to say, I think yours is my favorite draft. I really like what you did with your receiver position. I don't love DJ Moore in the 4th, but to get DK where you did, to get JSN where you did, Puka, Chase Brown, and Henderson feels like a really good running back combination, and kind of punting quarterback to still get Caleb Williams later in the draft in the 11th. Like, you got some high upside there as well. So well done, my friend.
Thank you. I'm quite happy with it. I took some calculated risks that we have now covered in exhaustive detail. And please, if you are undecided on what to do at the quarterback position, just wait. You go through and you look at guys like Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels and Jared Goff and Bo Nix. These are all guys that outscored several players that were drafted as the top 4 or 5 quarterback off the board. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So that would be the direction that I head into most drafts with, at least in my intentions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like just kind of pounding away at receiver in the first 4 rounds as much as you can, and then finding that value in the middle rounds like we did with those rookie running backs, the Jutkins, the Harveys, the Hendersons. Feels like great value. I mean, James Conner, if he can stay healthy, he's been an RB1. Dave Montgomery, if he could stay, like there's a Aaron Jones in the next round. Pollard, there feels like a lot of kind of value in that running back dead zone a little bit that we used to think of. So I don't mind pounding away at receiver like I did to have Ashton Genty, RJ Harvey, Jaylen Warren. My running backs feels really good. Kind of going with that the hero RB approach, but not even so much. That still got pretty good wide receivers on my team as well. And like Eric, kind of punting on that tight end position, got Tyler Warren later at the 12-12, CJ Stroud the 11-11. So really great stuff here tonight, guys. Appreciate everyone who helped us out with this. Easiest way to support us always here on In Between Media is to make sure you're subscribed to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. We've got NFL betting, college football betting, NASCAR betting, PGA betting, and entertainment betting all to help you cash more. Enjoy the ride along the way. We want to have fun while we do this, guys. Like, we don't just do this to give you the information, brain dump on you. We want to help you out and help you have fun along the way. That's what we try to do over here. Be sure to check out inbetweenmedia.com. Read Ben's mock draft article. Upcoming live events are on there as well, including Draft Night Out and the IBT Classic out there at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio this August. For Eric Romoff and our guy Jake the Snake Perry, I'm Seth Wilcock. Thanks for watching, and keep it in between. Until next time.